They say you can still hear the music, not every night. But sometimes, when the air is just right and the moon is high, you'll catch the faint wheeze of a calliope drifting through the trees by the old fairgrounds. Most people laugh it off. Urban legend, teenager nonsense, some even call it charming, like the town's own little ghost story. But there's a reason nobody goes near Laughing Pines after dark. Not really. Because once it was real. They say the circus shut down after the fire. Nobody really talks about what caused it. Just that one night in October, flames tore through the place. And by morning, everything was gone. The tents, the performers, the lights and music. Just scorched earth where all that wonder used to be. They never even found the bodies. Not a single one. Not even bones. People whispered, said the land had turned its back, that something darker had taken root there. But over time, those stories faded. The fences rusted. The town stopped asking questions, except some nights people swear they still hear the music. I always thought it was just a story. You know, one of those spooky tales meant to keep kids from sneaking in. Then my cousin Dean dared me to spend the night there. $100 if I made it to sunrise. Said I wouldn't last an hour. Obviously, I said yes. I got there just after sunset. The sky was that deep purple you only get in early October. Cold, too, just enough to bite. The old entrance gates were still standing, rusted and bent like jagged teeth. The moment I stepped through, something changed. The wind stopped. Everything got heavier, like the whole place was holding its breath. I walked past the old Midway, broken down game booths, busted dunk tanks, water guns with cracked nozzles. There were still prize toys behind the glass, somehow. Melted. Warped. A teddy bear with one eye and a creepy, half-melted smile just stared at me as I passed. Even though it was completely destroyed, it didn't feel empty. Then I saw the Ferris wheel, still towering, still stuck mid-spin. One of the gondolas was swaying slightly, more than the others, like someone had just stepped off. Or on. I kept walking. Next was the carousel. The horses were wrecked, splintered wood, peeling paint, rusted poles. One horse didn't have a head, another had no eyes, but somehow they felt aware, like they were watching me. I was about to leave when I heard it. Music, that unmistakable wheezy tune from a calliope organ. Only there was no power, no lights, nothing but wreckage and ash. Still, the music played. Then the carousel started to spin. Slow, uneven. The horses jerked up and down in this weird, broken rhythm, like something dead trying to remember how to move. My chest tightened. Dean had to be screwing with me, right? Maybe he snuck in earlier and rigged something. That's what I told myself as I backed away and kept walking. Past the food stands, where the air still smelled like burned sugar and popcorn. Past the fun house, with its smashed mirrors that still caught bits of moonlight, like cracked, grinning teeth. Then I reached the big top. It was half collapsed. The red and white stripes were now just dirty scraps of canvas, sagging and torn. The entrance was ripped wide open, like something massive had clawed its way through. Inside was quiet. The ring was empty. Benches lined the shadows. The air smelled like old hay and rust and something burnt. I stepped in. My boots crunched over old sawdust. Then I heard it. Clapping. Software distant. But definitely clapping. I froze. The benches were full. Dozens of people just sitting there. At first, I thought they were props. Leftovers. Then I looked closer. They were people. or had been. Faded costumes, pale, waxy skin, still as death. One kid in a sailor suit slumped sideways, his face stuck in this weird frozen grin. A woman in pearls stared blankly ahead, her mouth sewn shut with thick black thread. Then the spotlight clicked on, loud, sharp. One single beam lit the center of the ring, and someone stepped into it. A clown, tall, thin. The makeup on his face was smeared and melted, like it had been burned into his skin. He wore this filthy yellow suit, one shoe missing. But his eyes, they weren't eyes, just deep black holes that swallowed the light. He smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice crackling like an old vinyl record, "the show is about to begin." None of the audience moved, but somehow I could feel them turn. I could feel them see me. The clown tilted his head. "You're late." I ran, out of the tent, past the carousel. It was spinning faster now, the horses galloping in this twisted frenzy, past the funhouse mirrors. But this time the reflections were wrong. One version of me was smiling, another looked empty. Another was bleeding. I got to the gate. It was chained shut. It hadn't been before, and I yanked, pushed, screamed. Nothing. My phone was dead. My flashlight flickered once and died. Then came the laughter, high, twisted right behind me. Footsteps followed, uneven and soft. I dove into an old ticket booth and crouched, barely breathing. Something passed by. Slow. Dragging something heavy, I stayed hidden. For hours, maybe. Until the sky started to lighten. When I finally stepped out, the park looked exactly the same as when I arrived. Silent, burned, empty. The gate was wide open. I didn't stop. I ran all the way home. Dean was waiting, grinning. Asked if I made it the whole night. I told him everything. He laughed at first. Then he saw the envelope on my porch. It hadn't been there a second ago. Inside was a flyer. Not burned. Not old. Fresh. Laughing Pines Circus presents One Night Only, the final performance. It had today's date, a list of performers. My name was on the bottom. And on the back, written in smudged red ink, "You're part of the act now." That night, I locked every door, shut every curtain, left every light on. But right around midnight, I heard it again, that calliope music, coming from just down the hall. And I live alone. I stood frozen, heart pounding. I told myself it was my imagination, that maybe I was still dreaming. But the music kept playing. Soft at first, then louder. Closer. My bedroom door creaked. I turned, expecting to see the hallway. But instead, it was the 10th. The red and white stripes, the spotlight, the center ring. And in the middle, waiting with that same melted grin, was the clown. He lifted one hand and pointed at me. "Curtains up," he whispered. Then everything went dark. The crowd erupted in cheers. And somewhere, far off, a voice announced the next act. Me.